Welcome to Roll, Ponder, and Play, a podcast dedicated to crafting stories through the application of role-playing game engines, combined with creative thinking and propelled into the ether by the barest of prompts. I'm Eilwen As, taking on all the roles of game master, solo player, author, and narrator. Come with me on a journey, and together let us explore realms of shadow, danger, and wonder. One role can decide the fate of many things. Welcome to episode 19 of the Queen of Shadows podcast on Roll, Ponder, and Play. I'm Eilwen As, your friendly neighborhood game master, solo player, author, and narrator. In our previous episode, Eilwen and Aron finally make their way through the large pile of rock and resume their journey through the subterranean depths. In one area, they find some strange blue glowing water that passes through living matter with little effect, but affixes itself to unliving matter such as stone or metal. Eilwen pulls out her sword and allows the dribbling, glowing stream of magical water run over its iron blade. And the metal takes on a faint blue sheen even when dried. The light is not as bright as a torch, but it is enough to see by. Aron, seeing it as unnatural, judges her foolish for dealing with things she does not understand and refuses to apply the same to his axe. They spend a night in a ruined home of an elven family, and Eilwen finds two small figurines made of stone, that of a man and a woman, both carved with delicate, intricate skill. Putting them in her bag, she notices bits of flaking shell and sees the dark, sinuous head of the baby wyvern emerge from its shell. The little creature, soon free of its shell, takes to interacting with Eilwen. As she plays with it, the small winged lizard eats a share of their meat, much to Aron's chagrin and Eilwen's delight. Resuming their journey, they find more elf skeletons in the crumbling ruins and buildings on both sides of the street, wooden masks affixed to their faces. Continuing onward as the road narrows, they find another group of skeletons, these covering the road in front of them. They are contorted in horrific positions, and the horrid manner in which they perished can only be guessed at. Perhaps it was disease. This seems likely at what they encounter next, as a smell of rot begins to permeate the road ahead of them. There, blocking the way they must go, they see strange fungal growths wheezing like diseased lungs clinging to walls. With timing and precision, and with only some loss of supplies, they both make it through the narrow passage that stank of death and disease, and they resume their journey. After long hours of travel, they see down one passageway a pinprick of light and smell a breath of fresh air. It is the exit. But before they can get to it, they see the creature that killed Kiffin blocking their way. It is not aware of them, being entirely focused on slaying and then slurping up the remains of a wolf or wild dog who must have wandered into the tunnel. Eilwen, using a wolf's howl, manages to draw the creature into the wide thoroughfare, where Aron then uses a rock to send it scuttling away on its myriad legs in pursuit of the noise. Eilwen then calls the shadows down to mask their sight and sound, and caressed in their writhing forms, the siblings finally, after days in the dark, emerge into the gray light of the veiled mountains. As we begin this episode, Eilwen's stats are Edge 2, Heart 1, Iron 1, Shadow 3, Wits 2. Current assets: Archer, initial box; Cutthroat, initial box; Shadow Walk, initial box. Current statuses: Supply, 4 out of 5; Spirit, 0 out of 5. Health, 4 out of 5. Momentum, 10 out of 10. Current debilities, shaken. Current unspent XP, 0. And now, on to episode 19 of Queen of Shadows. Heavy gray clouds surrounded Eilwen and Aron as they trudged through the snow as flecks of ice driven by the wind stippled their exposed skin. While not comfortable, it was nothing like the cutting icy gale they had endured before they had gone underground several days ago. Now, back out in the open, they could see no more than a few feet. But even so, Eilwen rejoiced to be out in the open, in the crisp mountain air, away from the stale sense of decay, rot, ruin, dust, and crumbling time. She took the baby wyvern out of her pack, now the size of a medium-sized dog, fed it some, and then let it run in the snow. She had been giving it part of her rations each day, but she didn't mind. Not if this worked out. The tiny winged lizard scampered about and leaped atop a boulder covered with snow and ice. It couldn't quite reach the top in one leap, and its hind legs scrabbled at the icy rock for a heartbeat until its talons dug into the ice, and it climbed up to the top and peered about itself. It looked very pleased to be outside. It looked down over the edge of the boulder. Looked like it was about to leap off, then it hissed at the empty air and backed away from the edge, and gave a small caw, looking at Eilwen with dark eyes that seemed to be pleading. "A right fearsome beast to be sure," she said, as she rubbed its head before picking it up and helping it down. A tongue flicked out and grazed her cheek before she set it down. Then it leaped off again down the trail, frolicking in the snow. They cautiously pressed forward down the mountain slope. The exit from the underground ruins had placed them somewhere near the mountain's base, she thought. Now they followed a trail of sorts across a lower saddle, and the drop-off on either side of where they walked looked quite sheer. As for distance, she couldn't see the depths due to the murky clouds that hung about them. But judging from the rock she'd tossed over the edge and the clatter that followed maybe 3 heartbeats after she'd dropped it, it seemed quite far. Aron bumped into her, frowned, and said something she couldn't hear over the winds, though his eyes tracked the wyvern. They continued their march. If they could get out of these clouds, they could probably get their bearings. Okay, this is another Delve the Depths, and hopefully this is the last one, because we are at 8 out of 10 progress. Let's see what we get. I rolled a 6 on the action dice, plus 2 for her wits, is an 8, compared against a 6 and a 5 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. We mark progress and are now at 9 out of 10 on this delve. Finally, they moved down out of the clouds onto what appeared to be an old crumbling road, or what was left of it. Above them, the clouds were a gray, dismal blanket wrapped around the stone base of the mountain. The fractured road jutted up out of the ice and snow in sections, and Eilwen wondered if the fists of the gods long ago had caused the earthquake that had ripped the jagged portions of rock and stone out of the earth. Clouds wreathed the bases of the mountains above them as they continued to hike in a downward trek, and once they could see, she looked back and picked out landmarks. 3 mountains. Their journey through the pass, followed by their subterranean delvings, had taken them under 3 mountains. Okay, we're hoping to end this journey here. This is locate your objective move. Remember that the objective was to make it through the other end of the pass where they would find a settlement. That's the goal anyway. So I'm comparing the number of progress on the track against 2 challenge dice. The amount of progress we have is 9 boxes. And the challenge dice, I get a 10 and a 1. Okay, a weak hit. You locate your objective, but you face an unforeseen hazard or complication. They camped at the base of the mountain they had left behind, and for the next 2 days they dropped an elevation winding downward between smaller mountains, out of the region known as the Veiled Mountains. As they did so, the temperature climbed, and they passed into the region known as the Tempest Hills. Eilwen actually opened her bearskin cloak, letting it hang from her shoulders. She saw an alpine meadow where melting snows gave life to plants, animals, and vegetation she had only heard about in stories and tales from her father or mother, or the very occasional merchant who had passed through Frostbridge. Okay, I'm going to use a random Iron Sworn settlement generator to determine the settlement that they find. This is from https://chartopia.d12dev.com/chart/2012/. I get settlement name Red Crag. Settlement descriptor beautiful. Settlement trouble stranger causes discord. I think reaching the Tempest Hills region also counts as a milestone for any quests that involve them moving in a southerly direction. I can think of 3 vows that fall into that category. The Crown Quest or Crown Vow, that's 2 out of 40 now. That's my epic background vow. And the Find Information About Mother, what I'm calling the Mother Quest or Mother Vow, is 1 out of 10 now. That's a formidable vow. And then Rescue the People from Rock River. That is also a formidable vow and also at 1 out of 10. Below them, a winding trail of switchbacks led down to an alpine meadow filled with green underbrush, pine trees without snow, a high meadow filled with purple and yellow wildflowers and large grazing bovine. And the sun. The sun stared down at them for minutes on end this time instead of seconds before drifting behind clouds. Everything seemed new, fresh and alive. The baby wyvern leaped and bounded about the field of wildflowers, chasing birds and butterflies and even catching a bird in its mouth and swallowing it whole. It seemed to grin up at Eilwen, colorful feathers drifting to the ground around its head as it stared at her. Aron scowled and moved on, quickening his stride. In a different valley, in a meadow next to a forest of pines, they saw a settlement made of log homes. They looked behind them and saw the mountains bathed in burnished golds and pinks of the setting sun, lending it a ruddy glow. Her heart nearly skipped a beat at the beauty. "Keep walking, or you're going to draw attention," Aron grumbled, though the hunters and trappers that passed them by didn't seem to pay attention to them. In the center of the log buildings, larger than the others, they saw a 2-story log building of sturdy make. Nearby, on wooden racks long since bleached white by the sun, fish and other meats were drying in the open air or being smoked in a small wooden shack. People cooked on open fires. Sounds of song and laughter greeted them from the large 2-story building. The wafting smells of sizzling meat and vegetables, mixed with the yeasty smell of bread in the oven, made Eilwen's mouth water. How long had it been since she had had a hot meal? Her days wandering in the dark and the snow had all blended together. From the warm glow through the windows, they saw men and women drinking and laughing. A nearby brook that cut through the meadow lent its babbling splashings to the general merriment. The combined picture of the meadow and the settlement painted a scene of beautiful colors, smells, and sounds after the dark trails they had trod. They drew nearer the large building and saw a crude sign blowing in a light breeze. "What does it say?" Aron asked. "Red Crag," she translated the runes for him. The large building looked to be some kind of inn or way station, and Red Crag seemed an idyllic place. She was about to push open the door to the inn when Aron grabbed her arm with fingers hard as iron. She looked up at him, and he subtly pointed upwards with one hand. There, waving from a crude wooden pole above the large 2-story log construction, rippled the emblem of a black wolf's head and a sharp black fang on a field of red. Do they see any Wolf Fang clan warriors? Given the weak hit and the subsequent complication on the locate your objective move, I think that is likely, and the oracle agrees with a yes. They peeked through the windows and saw perhaps a dozen warriors all wearing woolens and leathers, dyed in red and black, sitting at 2 different tables, eating, drinking, laughing, and gambling. Aron pulled her arm, and together they retreated under the eaves of a log building across the street. We went out of our way to avoid the Wolf Fang clan, and now this, Aron muttered. We do need to rest and resupply, Eilwen said. Her eyes felt grainy, and the dirt and sweat made her stink like a hog. I need a good long rest and a bath. I agree you need that bath, Aron said and wrinkled his nose. You are smelling particularly ripe today. And you smell overripe, brother, she said with a small grin. He grinned in return, but then his mouth pressed down into a frown as he looked across the street again. He slowly shook his head. They'll spot us as northerners from Frostbridge or survivors of Rock River for sure. We're not dressed like most of the folk here. He uttered a curse. Nights beneath, but we stand out like blood on fresh snow. They'll ask questions. We'll skip the inn then, she nodded, pointing to the other homes. Let's see if we can rest in someone's home on the edge of town for a few days. We'll try to avoid their warriors if possible. Lead on, Aron said, and his jaws creaked with a massive yawn. Earl, stake me, but I need to sleep. His yawn made her own mouth start to open involuntarily in answer. She clamped it shut as they moved away from the main cluster of buildings making up Red Crag. Okay, this is going to be the Sojourn move, and I rolled a 1 + 1 for heart. That is a really bad roll. For a 2. Against a 9, and a 9, not again, on the challenge dice. Double 9s. Phew. And that is nearly the worst roll you can get in Ironsworn. The only thing worse would be 2 10s. But it's 2 9s and a match to boot. Eilwen already has shaken, and I need to clear that debility, or she could risk giving up quests that I don't want her to, or going insane, etc. I'm not ready for that yet. I'm going to burn my 10 momentum to cancel out both 9s, turning this into a strong hit on the Sojourn move. So under clear condition, she will clear her shaken debility and take +1 spirit. She can take a second option and does so with recover and consort to take +2 spirit more. So her spirit is now up to 3 out of 5. And her momentum resets to 2 out of 10. They found a trapper named Seath, about a 30-minute walk outside the settlement. He let them stay in his home so long as they agreed to help him cut, cook, and smoke meat from a bear he killed in the forest that day. His home lay nestled within a copse of trees. With the use of a horse and a crude litter, he had brought the large animal back to his home. At night they would do mending for him. Eilwen and Aron both readily agreed. They ate a meal with Seath, but when he wrinkled his nose, they took the hint and washed separately in a nearby stream. Eilwen scrubbed the dried blood and grime off of her body. The cold water still had the crisp scent of snow in it. Her teeth chattering and her skin white as bone from the cold. She dressed in fresh clothes and braided her long dark hair. Then she dried out as they talked in a sunlit meadow, and she felt the warmth of the sun, true warmth, that only the southern regions could bring, seep into her. She felt like a new person, drowsy and lethargic. She smiled at the sun and closed her eyes, breathed deeply the scent of grass and pine and aspen and wild flowers tinged with the scent of snow. The burbling brook lulled her to sleep. For a few days they recuperated and talked long into the night with Seath, swapping tales while they helped him with his chores. They asked about the Wolffang clan and other rumors. They also slept long through the days, eating and resting hard. Eilwen finally began to feel human again. She missed Kiffin, and still had nightmares about his death. But those were slowly passing. Okay, so asking questions and trying to find things out from Seath will be a gather information move. I am rolling plus wits, and I get a 6 on the action dice plus 2 wits is 8 against a 4 on the challenge dice and another 4 for a strong hit. I take plus 2 momentum, now 4 out of 10, and we get doubles and a positive match. As the time passed, Seath grew more comfortable around them and they around him. One night he sucked on a long, thin stone pipe with carvings of a serpent twisting around the handle, as Eilwen and Aron helped do some mending with needle and thread. The fire in the hearth popped and sizzled. Seath, with his red beard braided and decorated with colorful beads, rubbed the snake-carved pipe in his hand. A cloud of blue smoke swirled lazily about his head. As he puffed on his pipe, he talked about the Wolffang clan.
"The scum," he spat. "They ain't well liked here. They've been occupying not only Red Crag, but also nearby settlements. Their leader Uzak talks big and has grandiose plans to unite the Ironlands under his hand." "Aye, we came from the north and have seen their handiwork," Aron nodded. "Rock River was wiped out, and they've moved in their own people. In fact, Uzak once lived among us in Frostbridge. The heralds take him. What settlements have they taken down here?"
Let's take a little break from the narrative and find out what settlements he has taken down here. I will roll up 2 of them. Settlement name, Shieldwick. Settlement descriptor, diverse. Settlement name, Bleakstone. Settlement descriptor, rich.
Here in the Tempest Hills, they've taken Red Crag, Shieldwick, and Bleakstone. That last is a large mining settlement, and of course he has his fortress in Lone Fort.
"Sounds like he's making good on his plans," Aron grunted.
"Aye, the largest is Bleakstone,"
Seath said, chewing around his pipe.
"He has slaves mining deep in the earth there, and has cast up huge mounds of rock and earth. It's rumored that he struck a vein of black iron."
"Is it close?"
"Well, Bleakstone is about 2 days' travel from here. It's the closest to Red Crag. Then Shieldwick, next in line is Lone Fort itself. Lone Fort is a settlement with critical fortifications on the hill right by the town. It overwatches the main road, carrying caravans of ore out of these hills. Everyone moving goods along that road has to pay taxes on goods transported either in or out. The road cuts through the Lone Fort settlement. That's how he's funding his little army. If the fort were to fall..."
He stirred the fire with a poker and set a kettle of water on for tea. "How do people feel about the Wolffang clan in Red Crag?"
"Bah, they've been living here with a heavy hand, taking what they like, not paying for food and drink. The townspeople have had enough, I think. I've heard some talk of rising up, but what's the use? They have better weapons and armor. With their taxes and people on the main road, they control the ore going down to the lowlands."
His glance shifted to Eilwen's sword, and his red eyebrow raised. "They have swords?" she asked him, touching the pommel of her own protectively.
"Nah, not the main warriors. But it's rumored that Uzak has recovered the Sword of Mid and Sword of the Ancients, some have said. I can't say myself."
Another puff of smoke from his mouth.
"I've not seen it, but rumors have a tendency to have some truth, I reckon."
When she didn't say anything, Seath just shrugged and poured water into a wooden cup and added some tea leaves on top. He leaned back and nodded to the kettle.
"Help yourselves."
Eilwen poured some of the mint-flavored water into her cup and added a daub of honey from a nearby clay jar. "How many warriors do they have here?" she asked. "More than the dozen or so that we saw in the inn?" Let's take a break from the narrative and ask the oracle. I think there's a 50-50 chance. And I get a yes and.
"Aye," he grunted. "They've got a strong garrison of men in Red Crag. About 50 warriors, I'd say. Most are out on patrol or work detail. We're the farthest northern settlement in the Tempest Hills. I'm surprised you didn't run into them."
She decided to trust Seath. "We came through the West Kingsworth Pass."
Night some breath."
Seath made a sign against evil and fixed a sharp eye on her.
"They say anyone that takes that pass never returns."
He leaned forward and inhaled deeply on his pipe, causing the glow to light his face.
"They say that it's haunted."
"You might say that," Eilwen nodded. "There is an underground city, abandoned and ruined now. The elves used to dwell there, and—"
"Elves?"
He raised an eyebrow and leaned back in his chair and gave a condescending smile and then a chuckle.
"Lass, there are no elves. Those are tales fit for around a fireplace and a good drink of warm wine, though."
"We saw their bones," Eilwen said.
"'Tis true,"
Aron nodded. Eilwen pulled out her small statuettes and showed them to Seath. His mirth turned to a contemplative frown. "Do you know aught of that elven city?" Eilwen asked him. Does he? What would a trapper know? They do move around a bit, I think. I'll say somewhat likely. The oracle, on a roll of a 9, says yes. Seath sucked on his pipe.
"I've heard a tale or two. Some say it's called Grimstone now, yet you made it through."
He exhaled a stream of smoke out of one corner of his mouth.
"I'm sure there's a tale there, lass."
"We made it through with difficulty," Aron said, his face going shadowed. "There are monsters in the dark places. I won't speak of them." We lost a friend to one," Eilwen said, and for a long moment she stared at the fire. It popped and hissed, and something stirred her to action. "It is a dark and accursed place, but—" and here she rose and pulled out her sword. It glowed a faint blue. Seath's eyes bulged, and he rocked back in his chair and nearly fell backwards, as if she held a serpent between her hands. Eilwen gripped the blade in her right hand and the pommel in the left, the blade pointing down. "I swear by the iron in this blade that someday I will see Grimstone cleansed of its dark master who caused Kiven's death." Okay, this is a swear and iron vow, and I'm rolling plus heart. I'm going to say this is a formidable vow, since she has already been through the lands and has met the insane magician and has traveled its depths. The current milestones that come to mind are: secure a talisman to protect against his spells, locate a map of the area from the elves, secure others to aid her in the quest, journey back to the Veiled Mountains to the pass, journey through the site and locate his creature, face his creature and defeat it, locate Edris, face Edris and defeat him. Those aren't, of course, set in stone, but they are just some milestones that I came up with, and here is my roll. I rolled a 6 on the action dice, plus 1 for her heart is a 7, against a 10, and a 6 for a weak hit. She takes plus 1 momentum, 5 out of 10 now.
"Sister!"
Aron launched to his feet, whispering, his face inches from her, anger modeling his complexion. His hand gripped her own on the pommel. "Put that away. What of our other obligations, promises, oaths, vows?" "Fear not, brother," she said in a terse whisper. Seath stared at her and her sword. He leaned back and sucked rapidly on his odd pipe. "This will happen in good time. I shan't begin it now, nor will I throw my life away needlessly on it. But if that madman moves against me or mine, I shall act. If he sits as a spider in his lair and bides his time, as he has these last centuries, then so be it. In that case, I shan't seek him out until our other matters are attended to." Aron muttered, but turned back to the fire, warming his hands. "But I make preparations to move against Uzak and his Wolf-Fang clan soon."
"What?" He spun back to her. "Why? I said before that it has nothing to do with finding the crown." "Hush," she commanded. "It has, and I'll explain it later in private." "I don't understand," he muttered. "Patience," she said. Aron grumbled but sat down. Eilwen sheathed her sword. They returned to their task of mending. Did Seath hear their whispered conversation? I think it's unlikely, since he was distracted by the sword, and the oracle agrees with me on a roll of a 1 for a no and. I guess he's a little hard of hearing, too. That blade was glowing," Seath said in a gasping whisper.
"Yes," she said simply. "It is an ancient blade, and I plan to use it against Uzak."
"You what?"
Seath asked, his eyes wide. He stared at the sword, then up to those eyes that bore the weight of a heavy vow that bound her to a course of action. "I believe you heard me," she said. After a moment, he nodded slowly.
"I am a bit deaf in one ear, but I heard that, and I saw more,"
he muttered, his eyes still wide as he stared at the pommel of her sword.
"Where did you get that? Is it the sword of Mirden?"
She didn't answer him. "Seath, suppose I said I had a reason to stand against Uzak and his Wolf-Fang clan," she said. "Would you help me?" Okay, she's not trying to convince him to help. She's just asking where he stands. So there's no compel move here, and given that he's impressed by her and her blade and the bad history Wolf-Fang has, I'll say it's somewhat likely. And the oracle on a roll of a 7 says yes. He started coughing and sputtered.
"Me? What can I do? I'm no warrior."
She held the glowing sword point down, her hands on the pommel, and stared at him. "I will see it done," she said, "but I'll need help." For a while he stared at the blade. Then he squared his shoulders and looked her in her eyes again. He nodded slowly.
I'll help you, lass, but I'm just a worthless trapper and a sometimes hunter."
"I'll take whatever I can get," she said. "Uzak has to be stopped. As Aron said, he used to be from my settlement of Frostbridge, and there's a debt to settle, especially after what he did to Rock River. Do you know who Wolf-Fang plans to target next?"
"Does he? Tell us, O great oracle."
I think it's a 50-50 chance, and the oracle on a 5 says no, but... His gaze wandered back to the jagged-edged sword that continued to glow a faint blue. He shook his head.
"No. There are 3 settlements the same distance away. He could be planning on any or all of them. But I do know a certain son of a serpent named Mattox, who probably knows."
"Who is he?"
"He's a snake. He's lived here in Red Crag the last decade, but I tell you he's a sneaking adder you can't trust."
He growled and poked at the fire. The smoke from his pipe streamed out of his nose.
"An informant for Wolf-Fang. He spies on people in town. Turned in his own mother, he did. for his pick of a slave girl and a stipend of iron ore.
He stabbed the fire, and a flurry of sparks rose up the chimney.
But he's supposedly involved in their secret councils. He's bound to know some things.
Eilwen's eyes flashed at the mention of a slave girl, and she thought of the women and children from Rock River.
I take it you don't like him much, Aron added, looking at Seath. He turned in my Kari, my daughter. If you could get him alone on a dark street, it'd please me greatly to see you twist a knife into his guts to get answers. Even if you didn't get answers, it'd please me. Heralds and knights, but it'd please me to do it.
I think we can arrange that, Eilwen said. That night, when she and Aron were alone in their room, she explained her plans and how her vow to rescue the Rock River settlers dovetailed with her quest to become queen and to find out more information about Mother. Okay, I won't read the plans here, as they are only possible milestones for the various quests, but I will include them on my show notes on my Patreon. When Eilwen finished explaining her plans to Aron in their little room in the Seath's home, he sat back on his bedroll and exhaled.
You've been thinking a lot about this, haven't you?
She nodded. You'll help me then?
I will, Aron said, seeming more at peace.
Now that we've truly begun, may Mother's soul rest in peace, he said. Eilwen hoped it did rest in peace, but she kept her own counsel as a nagging doubt burrowed into her mind. Had Mother been involved with dark powers? And might Eilwen be playing with those same powers herself? She didn't want to think about that. The shadows that she called. They were only a tool, she told herself. She shoved the thoughts away and turned to her pack. The young wyvern had slept all night there. It had grown, too. Soon she'd have to find a new place for it to stay. Perhaps a cage? No, you couldn't cage this perfection, she decided. She fed it some bear meat from Seath's pantry and scratched the wyvern behind its ears. It rumbled a bit, like a cat's purring, and nosed under her hand so she'd continue her pleasurable ministrations. I think I'll name you Scratch. She smiled at it, continuing to scratch near the clear membrane that covered its ear holes. It looked into her eyes with its strange, unblinking gaze. Then it finally rumbled another hissing exhale, and its eyelids closed in relaxation, where it then fell into a deep sleep with a slight snore intermixed by hissing sounds. She shut her mind to internal whispers that warned her of playing with dangers she didn't understand, and fell asleep. She dreamed of taming both shadows and wyverns, but the dream turned nightmarish. An adult wyvern ripped out her heart, and the shadows oozed out of the night, writhed into the heart's bloody cavity, and moved her about, a puppet on strings, a puppet that walked and melded with an iron pillar and could not escape, as a golden circlet with a ruby at its fore faded to mist and blew away upon a cold wind. She awoke with a start in the early morning hours, her heart pounding, and shoved off the covers. Scratch snored lightly. Eilwen hugged her arms and stared at the stars out the window, seeking light in the darkness. Eventually, she returned to her bed, and sleep returned, though it came slowly, like an old man bearing a pack of stones through a frozen pass in the Veiled Mountains. Thank you for joining us, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed what you experienced. If you would like to support Roll, Ponder, and Play, you can do so in a number of ways. You can give the show a positive review on your podcatcher of choice. You can share the show with your friends and family and on your socials. Nothing beats word of mouth as a way to bring in new listeners. You can join my Patreon at patreon.com/rollponderandplay. There you can find show notes and transcripts, as well as other projects I'm involved in. And paid subscribers get access to subscriber-only episodes, shows, and other content. Finally, you can simply reach out to me and say hello. Comments from you are what inspire me to keep doing this, and I'd sincerely love to hear what you think of the show. To do so, you can find me on my Patreon, or on Discord at Roll, Ponder, and Play, or by email at rollponderandplay@gmail.com. Until we meet again on Roll, Ponder, and Play, may your own dice rolls ever bring you success.